Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Virgo. Um, so, distance creates the cruelest kind of clarity, the kind that arrives too late to prevent the damage, but just in time to make someone feel every bit of what they destroyed. And right now, someone who pushed you away is drowning in that clarity. They're discovering what absence teaches, what loss reveals, what space without you actually feels like. And it doesn't feel like freedom. It doesn't feel like relief. It feels like walking around with a vital organ missing, like trying to breathe in a room with all the oxygen removed, like realizing the thing they thought was holding them back was actually the only thing holding them together. Let me describe what regret looks like when it finally catches up. They thought they needed distance, needed to explore other options, needed to see what else was out there, needed to be alone, needed to not feel obligated, needed to prioritize themselves without the weight of someone else's needs pressing on them constantly. So they pushed, created space, made excuses, withdrew energy, let the connection deteriorate through strategic neglect until you finally got the message and stopped reaching. And when you stopped reaching, they felt relief initially. That pressure released, that obligation lifted, that freedom to just be without having to consider someone else. Some people chase that feeling, that lightness of not being accountable to anyone, of being able to move through life without having to explain or include or consider another human's feelings. But lightness becomes emptiness pretty quickly. Freedom becomes loneliness. And space that felt liberating starts feeling like exile. They're in that phase now, where the initial relief has curdled into something darker, where they're starting to understand that what they pushed away wasn't burden, it was ballast. And without it, they're unmoored, drifting, lost in ways that have nothing to do with geography and everything to do with having no anchor. Let's pause here. This reflection invites you to consider, when someone realizes too late what they lost, does their regret matter to your healing? Maybe they're seeing you clearly for the first time now that you're not available, now that your attention isn't guaranteed, now that they can't take your presence for granted because your presence is simply gone. Absence reveals value that proximity obscured. When someone is always there, it's easy to forget they could not be, easy to treat them carelessly because you assume they'll tolerate it, easy to prioritize other things because you believe they'll wait. Until they don't wait, until they're just gone. And suddenly, all the things that felt more important than keeping them feel completely insignificant. Some people don't know what they have until it's in their rear view. They operate on autopilot, assuming certain people will always be there, always be available, always be willing to tolerate being deprioritized. And then those people leave, or in this case, those people finally accept the push and stop fighting to stay close to someone who keeps pushing them away. And the person who did the pushing has to face what they actually created. A world where you're not in it anymore, where your texts don't come, where your effort isn't applied, where your love isn't offered. And that world feels wrong, incomplete, like they removed something essential and are now trying to function without it and discovering they can't. This reflection invites you to consider, have you noticed someone whose energy changed once you stopped chasing them? There's something specific about the phrase, can't live without you. It sounds dramatic, romantic, even. Like finally they understand your value, like their realization should mean something significant to you. But often, what it actually means is, I'm uncomfortable now, and you used to make me comfortable. Or, I tried other things and they weren't better, so I'm coming back to the option I know. Real realization of someone's value includes understanding what specifically you lost. Not just that you feel bad now, but why. What exactly about this person made your life better? What they brought that you haven't found elsewhere. Some people miss you but can't articulate what they miss. They just know they feel worse without you. But that's not valuing you. That's just recognizing their own discomfort. Real valuing is specific. I miss the way you listened when I was overwhelmed. I miss how you made normal moments feel special. I miss your particular laugh. I miss the version of myself that existed when I was with you. Vague missing is just nostalgia. Specific missing is actual recognition of what you brought that they foolishly pushed away. And you deserve to know the difference. Because if someone's coming back just because being without you is uncomfortable, that's not about you being special. That's about them being unable to sit with their own discomfort. This reflection invites you to consider, if someone came back, would you need them to articulate exactly what they lost, or would general regret be enough? Let me address what might actually be happening in their internal world right now. They might be comparing everyone to you, every interaction, every potential connection, and finding them all lacking in ways they didn't anticipate, because you set a standard they didn't realize existed until you were gone. Some people don't recognize what good treatment looks like until they experience bad treatment. They don't know what genuine care feels like until they encounter people who just perform caring without actually feeling it. And now they're in the contrast, experiencing what it's like to be with people who don't do what you did, who don't show up the way you showed up, who don't care with the depth you cared with. And the comparison is making them insane because they had that. They had you, and they treated you like you were replaceable when you were actually irreplaceable. Or they're alone, chose solitude, and discovering that solitude without you isn't peaceful, it's just lonely. That the space they thought they needed feels empty rather than freeing. Some people romanticize being alone until they actually are. They think they want independence until they have it, and realize independence without meaningful connection is just isolation wearing a better name. And they're sitting in that isolation, realizing that what they called neediness in you was actually just healthy interdependence. What they called pressure was just normal relationship maintenance. What they called weight was just the responsibility of caring for someone who cared for them. This reflection invites you to consider, does someone realizing their mistake late undo the harm of them making it in the first place? There's something important about what you're feeling or might feel when you sense their realization. Maybe vindication, like finally they understand, finally they recognize what they had. Finally, they're suffering the consequences of pushing away someone who was genuinely good to them. That vindication might feel satisfying, might feel like justice, might feel like the universe finally showing them what you knew all along, that they made a terrible mistake. But vindication is empty calories. It fills you momentarily, but doesn't actually nourish. And chasing it means you're still emotionally tethered to someone who already proved they'll hurt you. Or maybe you feel nothing. You've moved so far past them that their regret doesn't register as relevant to your current life. They can realize whatever they want. It doesn't change that you've healed, moved on, found peace without them. That's the healthiest response. When someone's realization about losing you comes too late to matter because you've already closed that chapter so completely that their regret is just background noise you don't need to engage with. Or maybe you feel tempted, they're realizing their mistake. Shouldn't that count for something? Shouldn't growth be rewarded? Shouldn't people get second chances when they learn? And maybe they should, but not automatically, not just because they learned the hard way. Growth is good, but your job isn't to be the practice ground for people learning not to take others for granted. Let me be very direct about what their realization does and doesn't entitle them to. It doesn't entitle them to your time, your energy, your willingness to hear them out, your forgiveness, your second chance, your trust rebuilt. What it does entitle them to is their own growth, their own lesson learned, their own understanding that actions have consequences and some consequences are permanent. Some doors close for good. Some people you push away don't come back even when you realize you were wrong. That's not cruelty, that's just how it works. If they're realizing they can't live without you, that's their journey, their lesson, their discomfort to sit with. You don't have to rescue them from it by making yourself available again. You already did your part. You showed up, you cared, you tried, and they pushed you away. Their regret doesn't obligate you to do it all again just so they can feel better about their mistake. You can acknowledge their growth and still protect your peace. You can appreciate that they learned something and still choose not to teach them anything else. Can wish them well from distance without letting them back into proximity. You remain in complete control of whether their realization matters to your life going forward. You can open the door or keep it closed, can give chances or maintain boundaries, can forgive or simply move forward. The power is yours. It always has been. You may notice reading this has brought up a specific person who pushed you away. Maybe satisfaction that they're struggling, maybe sadness that they learned too late, maybe fear that you'll be tempted to return to something that already didn't work. Whatever it is, honor it, take what resonates, softly release the rest. Trust yourself. Before we close, I want to ask you something. If someone who pushed you away came back saying they realize they can't live without you, would that be enough to try again? Drop it in the comments. And this is someone realizing too late that they need you more painful for them or more powerful for you. They pushed you away, but now they realize they can't live without you. And that realization is their burden to carry, not your responsibility to relieve, not your problem to solve, just their consequence to experience. Regret is a cruel teacher. It makes people understand exactly what they destroyed long after destruction is complete. And sometimes the lesson isn't you can get them back. Sometimes it's just you lost something irreplaceable. Not eventually, they're learning it now. Trust yourself with this. Trust that their growth doesn't obligate your return. Trust that you can acknowledge their regret without accepting it as your problem. Trust that some chapters close permanently, even when people finally understand what they lost. See you in the next one. And listen, someone realizing too late that they need you is closure, not invitation. They learned you're free. Stay free, stay protected. Their regret is theirs to hold.